Hello, my name is Jim Newell, and I'm the Rejoinder U Party candidate in the Stretford and Urmston constituency in the general election on the 4th of July. In my last video, I mentioned that I challenged the other candidates to a Zoom debate and had contacted Manchester Evening News with the invitation to host it. I also mentioned that I'd received replies neither from the other candidates nor from the news, and that my intuition was that I wouldn't receive any such replies. So I can now confirm that my intuition was correct, and I can add to that as well. Last week, I received a message from the representative of one of the local churches who had invited me to participate in a hustings, but who in her message withdrew the invitation, apparently because the other candidates had declined to indicate a willingness to participate. I thought the message was interesting because the church representative suggested that it was all a sad reflection on the current state of politics, or words to that effect. I thought this was interesting because, as I pointed out to her, to withdraw the invitation was, in effect, to perpetuate such a bad state of affairs. After all, to withdraw the invitation because the others had decided not to participate was, in effect, to give them the power to decide whether, and if so, under what conditions others would be allowed to communicate their messages. And this, I thought, raised serious questions of democratic principle. So we still don't know where the front runner in this election, Mr. Weston, the Labour candidate, stands on the crucial question of Europe, even though economists have pointed out that his party's growth plan hasn't got a cat's hell in chance of being realised outside the single market and the customs union. What we do know is that one of the ways in which Labour hope to achieve the increased growth is by ripping up the planning system, because one of the effects of doing this is to make it easier to attract inward investment. Just have a listen to the boss of one of the big pharmaceutical companies who was interviewed on Radio 4 yesterday morning.
It's 19 minutes past 7. More now on the news this morning that the boss of the world's most valuable drugs company has told the BBC that the UK's planning system is an impediment to investing in this country. He was talking to Sean, who's back with us.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. This is Dave Ricks, who's the chief executive and chairman of the obesity drug manufacturer Eli Lilly. It's a company worth $800 billion. He told me he had considered building a factory in Britain in the last decade, but chose another country instead, describing how he thinks the UK is less attractive than other countries, including Ireland and the US, where things can get built more quickly. I've got Sir Nigel Wilson with me, who until earlier this year was chief executive of Legal & General, Britain's biggest investment group, also now the incoming chairman of the Canary Wharf Group. Morning, Sir Nigel.
Good morning.
How common is that? Businesses in theory wanting to build here, but choosing elsewhere?
Very common, unfortunately. And I've heard similar messages from a lot of UK CEOs about their inability to build factories in the UK. This is something the Labour Party has to grip quickly, because
So there we have it. And the trouble, I think, with ripping up the planning system is that it makes it easier for multinational companies to concrete over the countryside. And I don't know about you, but I think that what this boss is saying is pretty outrageous, to be honest. I mean, after all, with all his power to dictate public policy by means of his investment decisions, he is, of course, accountable to absolutely nobody. And that is where I think membership of the EU is so important, because membership of a large entity like the EU means that we, together with other member states, have the power to stand up to these multinational companies. In other words, we can have both their investment and keep the planning system, because together we are strong enough not to be blackmailed by them. What we can also do is that we can tax the rich more effectively. At the moment, You often hear it said, particularly by representatives of the Institute for Fiscal Studies and similar bodies, that taxing capital and the super rich more effectively is difficult because it discourages investment and capital is mobile. If taxes are too high, in other words, the super rich will simply pull their capital and invest it in other countries. Well, I accept this argument, but again, as members of the EU, the problem doesn't present itself simply because the European Union is large and can stand up to such threats. So I've never really understood why anybody on the left would not want to join the EU as a matter of priority. It is essential for the cohesion of the social fabric and for the strength of democracy that we do something to tackle growing inequality, as recently pointed out by a range of think tanks. So here, for instance, we have a report in the Guardian. A deeply fair and unequal country report warns of unprecedented far-right gains in the UK. Think tank says decisive action must be taken to counter inequality in health, housing, poverty, and the north-south income divide. This is a report produced by the Fairness Foundation that says that Britain will become more unfair and unequal over the next 5 years, and that unless we do something to tackle growing inequality, then there will be a massive amount of damage to our society, economy, and democracy, directly fueling the growth of the far right as people turn to the far right to express their resentment and dissatisfaction. So really essential to do something about tackling inequality. And moreover, more progressive taxation would, as the pressure group Tax Justice point out, enabling the raising of an extra £50 million a year. So here we have, for example, Tax Justice UK, who points 6 wealth taxes could raise £50 billion. There's a lot you can do with an extra £50 billion. So the point is that in the EU, we can do just that. We can achieve such aims because together in the EU, we are much stronger. So here we have, for example, if I can get this thing to work, I'm not very good at this technology, but here we have, for example, there we go, the European Citizens Initiative that is currently being undertaken in the EU. European Citizens Initiatives are a bit like the parliamentary petition system, you know, where you can go on Parliament's website and launch a petition calling on the government to do this, that, or the other. You can do something very similar in the European Union. You can launch a petition calling on the European Commission to introduce legislation. So here we have European Citizens Initiative petition that's currently doing the rounds, taxing great wealth to finance the ecological and social transition. So, as I say, much stronger together in the EU. Together in the EU, we can achieve much more. So please vote for the Rejoin EU Party on July the 4th. Thanks very much for listening and have a great day. Thank you.